Dr. Joseph Thompson.
Thank you all. It is really something to see this from here. So I'm going to ask you guys to indulge me for a moment. Will you? I'm never going to see this again. One more.
Really?
I didn't quite get you.
Hi, my name is Tom Walker, and I'm currently at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, finishing my MFA in painting. Sorry for the lo-fi webcam video format, but I didn't have any other way to do this, so I hope that's okay. So I'd just like to say a few words about my relationship with Joseph Thompson. I met Joseph in 2002, and my first class with him was Intro to Ethics 322, which I had to take as a requirement, otherwise I would never have taken it. And, you know, in comes this guy with his black leather jacket and his black pants and his black shoes, and he had his coffee, and I remember thinking, who the hell is it? Who's this guy? You know, and he came in and, you know, he kind of sat down and put his notepad down and, you know, just very formally addressed the class, and I remember just being mesmerized by his presence. And, you know, from that moment on, I mean, I took every class I could with Joseph. I took, I think, 10 classes over the next 8 years, because everything, his classes were so interesting and so engaging, and he could present the material. I mean, he could make anything interesting. And I took everything from German metaphysics to contemporary problems to ancient Greek philosophy to feminist philosophy to Descartes to Kant, and I loved it. And having Joseph as an instructor changed my life.
I'm going to conclude that, well, in some way philosophy enhances life. And it does so in a way which is unique and which is not reducible to or replaceable by other disciplines. So it has some kind of unique contribution in that. That's where I'm going with my conclusion.
You cannot appeal to past practice and tradition when that practice and tradition have been discriminatory and unjust. It's as simple as that. You cannot appeal to a discriminatory tradition to justify continued discrimination. Tradition itself is not an unerring authority, but only a guideline. And where rights are concerned, past practice and tradition are nearly always wrong, as we find. We look back and we find they have nearly always been on the wrong side of questions of rights. And this goes on until rights are eventually granted to a minority group, which hitherto had suffered unjust discrimination and diminution. Well, history has neither remained static, nor has it moved backwards on questions of rights. Where rights are concerned, groups go in one direction. They go from not having rights and struggling for equal recognition, eventually, we hope, to enjoying those rights and being protected by that equal recognition.
And over the years, we went from this student-teacher relationship to one of the most meaningful friendships I've ever had. And Joseph Thompson was one of the first people to ever buy one of my paintings.
Another claim that one often hears, and you hear this about homosexuality, about LGBT, as well as about same-sex marriage, is that somehow it goes against nature. It goes against nature. Well, why is that bad? It is not in itself morally wrong or bad to do something that is against nature. To go, quote, against nature, I might better say beyond nature, is what it is to be human. Computers, cars, chemotherapy, contraceptives, deodorant. Those all go against nature in this sense. Well, under the following heading, I want to suggest that what's morally wrong here is discrimination. I argued that LGBT is not morally wrong because it does no harm. On the contrary, I want to suggest the harm is to discriminate against gays and lesbians and not permit them to marry if they want to. As I'm suggesting, apart from ethics which depend upon religion, there is no substantive moral theory according to which LGBT would be morally wrong. The moral harm being committed here is the overt discrimination against LGBT. We are not recognizing their full equality. And I want to say, coming out of the tradition of rights theory, that to discriminate against someone is to inflict a moral harm upon them. It is a diminution of their rights and a denial of full recognition. There are many parallels here to women's rights, to the rights of racial and ethnic and religious minorities. I see the development of gay rights as coming in the long line of the development of civil rights in this country. And this is another arbitrary distinction, as all of those prove to be. Sex is an arbitrary distinction, ethnicity, race, religion, well, so too is sexual orientation. So I would submit that it is blatant discrimination to deny individuals the right to marry simply because they happen to be the same sex.
When I asked my wife to marry me, I knew that I wanted Joseph Thompson to perform the ceremony, which he so graciously did and knocked it out of the park. I mean, he had people in tears. It was pretty incredible.
He says arbitrary distinctions like this are unjust. Rawls says that justice requires that we are each entitled to the maximum amount of liberty possible, compatible with everyone else enjoying that same amount of liberty. The so-called equal liberty principle. Well, the equal liberty principle directly affirms that if some adult persons have the liberty to marry the consenting adult person of their choice, then every adult person must have that liberty. Persons are the appropriate unit for analysis here. Persons. Since justice demands that we not make distinctions between persons for reasons which are not morally relevant. As I say, Rawls is coming out of the Kantian tradition. For Kant, the unit of moral analysis is that of rational beings. So a free, equal, rational being should be able to marry another free, equal, rational being. There's no contradiction there. It's reasonable, it seems to me, to consider marriage without regard to sex as involving simply one rational being or one person to another. It would be wrong to allow some rational beings to marry the person of their choice based on love and sex, other considerations, and not allow others to. The only hindrance in same-sex marriage is what sex you are, which is an arbitrary distinction. It is not morally relevant to the concept of a person, and it is not specified in the concept of what it is to be a spouse. What someone's sex is not morally relevant, nor one's race, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic class, or sexual orientation. So to make distinctions, to discriminate based on these arbitrary distinctions is therefore unjustifiable. An adult person should have the right to marry another consenting adult person regardless of the sex of either person, because sex is an arbitrary and unjustifiable distinction.
Since I've been here in Hawaii, I've been teaching my own classes, and I often find myself kind of emulating his style and just the way he is with his students. And he had these little mannerisms he would do, and I still find myself doing them. And I remember I wrote Joseph last summer. I kind of told him, I said, hey, just so you know, I'm ripping your style off completely until I discover my own. And he wrote me back a really nice response. He said that it wasn't ripping off at all, and that we often emulate those people in our lives that have made an impact on us. And he told me about a professor of his, Richard Schacht, who he was emulating, who studied under Walter Kaufman, who he says he was emulating. So it was this history that was being passed along, and he told me that what I was doing was continuing that tradition of teaching that he had learned from his professor, who had learned from Walter Kaufman. And so I like to think that that's what I'm doing with my own students, is that if I can if I can inspire just one of these students in the smallest way that Joseph inspired me and changed my life, then I would be happy with that. And I think Joseph would be proud and happy as well.
Now here I am paraphrasing my teacher, Richard Schacht, and I'm quoting freely from him, also running up on my time limit here. Philosophy helps us learn to experience certain things as valuable, even very abstract things such as the rights and the dignity of others. To learn to experience those things as valuable. It is only to the properly cultivated and attuned consciousness that such things even exist, let alone matter, that is, the rights and the well-being of others, for example. Well, lastly, philosophy is concerned with our relation to the forces in the world, and we want to feel that we're fundamentally attuned to them in some way. Not just in our own individual lives, but in the world more generally. And a central task of philosophy, no less than art or religion, is to mediate our consciousness in such a way that we are able to identify with these forces that shape our lives, in some sustaining or uplifting way. To relate ourselves to those forces, that's part of what philosophy can enable us to do, to carry on then through thick and thin, without recourse to some transcendent, otherworldly, afterlife type stuff that does not survive critical scrutiny. Philosophy can help us interpret this relation more thoughtfully, more meaningfully, that is, our relation to what's going on in the world. And it can help us develop ways of thinking that rise above ordinary ways of thinking about these things. So these are some of the things that a philosophical education at its best can do. And so this is indeed one of the reasons why we need philosophy. Thank you very much.
Dr. Thompson was really an inspirational teacher. And although it seemed like a really absurd class to have, I really do have a deeper understanding both of arts that I was familiar with my whole life and a deeper appreciation for them. And I feel like that's because he taught the class so well. He was such an amazing teacher, such an amazing mentor, and he'll be truly missed both on campus. And I feel like because I had that class with him, I was inspired to do more for my community and to join things like the Socratic Society and participate in events like the Ethics Bowl a couple years ago, where I took 3rd place. And I really owe Dr. Thompson a credit for that, and for really inspiring me to be a better person and to really be more involved both in my community and as a student, and he'll be deeply missed.
This is Jeopardy! Today's contestants are an assistant professor from Fairbanks, Alaska, Joseph Thompson.
Joseph Thompson from Fairbanks, Alaska, assistant professor of philosophy and humanities, who thinks he may be the northernmost Nietzsche scholar in the world.
I think so. There may be one in Murmansk, Russia. And if so, we'll probably hear about it.
The branch of astronomy that deals with the structure and evolution of the universe. Joseph.
What is cosmology?
You are right.
Ologies for 600, please.
An expression of regret. Joseph.
What is an apology?
Yes.
To answer your question, Jack, as Lucius Fox, it turns out I'm the one who gets this title guy those wonderful toys when he begins.
Joseph.
Who is Batman?
Batman, you are right.
I'll take letters for 200, please.
It equals a 2.0 GPA. Joseph.
What is a C?
Opened in 1936, this bridge links Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx. Joseph.
What is the Triborough Bridge?
Correct.
Letters for 600, please.
It stands for a metric unit equal to about a quarter gallon. Joseph.
What is L?
L for liter, yes. If your trademark application is okayed, you can follow the trademarked item with this letter in a circle. Richard.
What is a C?
No. Joseph.
What is an R?
R, that's it. Infamous herbicide of 1960s wartime Indochina. Joseph.
What is Agent Orange?
Correct.
Orange for 1200.
Dystopian Anthony Burgess novel of punks and pathology. Joseph.
What is a Clockwork Orange?
You're right.
World history for 1600.
Around 2500 BC, the Harappan civilization sprung up around this river in Pakistan and northwestern India. Richard.
What is the Ganges?
No. Joseph.
What is the Indus?
The Indus, yes.
World history for 2000.
An economic crisis forced this Indonesian leader to resign on May 21st, 1998, ending 32 years of autocratic rule. Joseph.
Who is Suharto?
Suharto, yes.
Measure time for 400, please.
The waist of this British queen was measured at 46 inches when she died in 1901. Joseph?
Who is Victoria?
Yeah.
I feel so very lucky to have met Joseph and had him in my life, and I wish I could tell you, go on forever with this, but my life wouldn't have been turned out this way if Joseph Thompson hadn't played a big part in it. And I wish I could be there with you all to remember him and hear the countless other stories of lives he's touched and influenced, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to share some of these thoughts, and I know he will be sorely missed by all of us.
Well, good evening. I'm Cole Porter. My friends just call me that jackass. I'm here tonight to tell you that anything goes. Times have changed, and we've often rewound the clock since the Puritans got a shock when they landed on Plymouth Rock. If today any shock they should try to stem, instead of landing on Plymouth Rock would land on them. In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. But now, heaven knows, anything goes. Good authors, too, who once knew better words, now only use four-letter words writing prose. Like what? Anything goes. The world has gone mad today, and good's bad today, and black's white today, and day's night today, when most guys today that women prize today are just silly gigolos. So, though I'm not a great romancer, I know that I'm bound to answer when you propose. Anything goes. If driving fast cars you like, if low bars you like, if old hymns you like, if bare limbs you like, if Mae West you like, or me undressed you like, why, nobody will oppose. So, I may not have that much to give her, but you call me and I'll deliver like dominoes. Anything goes. Anything goes.